Share the screen. Right. We're up to number 6 of the section called The Rewards of God. Gary usually start. You happy to start?
Sure, I'm happy to start.
Are
My
you sure?
trust.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
So did you say number 6?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh.
You got it, Linda?
No.
It might be a different version to what I've got as well. Is that the complete thing with the blue cover and the gold writing?
Yeah, the complete course plus supplements.
Maybe I remembered wrong, but I think it's chapter, it must be chapter 4 because that's why it goes T4, I think.
Yeah, I think it's chapter 4, V16.
Oh, yes. So it's 68. So it's just the page over. Sorry, I just wanted to get on the right page before we got going.
No worries. Okay, here we go. Oh, Jane's joined us. Cool.
Yes, Jane's coming. Joe's not far away, Carly said.
Okay. Hey, Jane.
Hi, Jane.
Hi, everybody.
Okay, here we go. My trust in you is greater than yours in me at the moment, but it will not always be that way. Your mission is very simple. You are asked to live so as to demonstrate that you are not an ego, and I do not choose God's channels wrongly. The Holy One shares my trust and accepts my atonement decisions because my will is never out of accord with his. I have said before that I'm in charge of the atonement. This is only because I completed my part in it as a man, and now can complete it through others. My chosen channels cannot fail because I will lend them my strength as long as theirs is wanting. Ooh,
Yeah, it's
I got
pretty deep, isn't it?
shivers on that. Yeah.
It's Christmas and everything. I thought it might be a simple one.
Wow.
Oh,
That is truly beautiful. Does anyone have anything they want to elaborate or ask or say about it?
The number, sorry.
I feel I need to write that one down and recite it to myself.
Wow. I have to write down and remember the paragraph. T4. Oh, that's really beautiful.
Isn't it great to think that there's like a higher spirit that has complete trust in whatever you do?
If only it was a reversal.
Yes. Yes. That's what we're working
Well,
on.
I think for me, what's so impressive about this paragraph is the first time I've heard the Course say in first person almost, this is only because I completed my part in it as a man and now complete it through others. Which is, that beautiful statement in the Bible that says, well, I'm not going to quote it, accurately for sure, but something to the effect that we have even, that we will even do greater things than Christ. And I just think that that statement is so beautifully reflected in what's written here. And I think it just presupposes that if we're reading the Course, miracles, we are the chosen channels.
Wouldn't it
Yeah,
also
it's
be
so
great?
awe-inspiring, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is.
Wouldn't it also be great if we had that much trust in each other?
Mm.
Yeah. And I was just going to say that the last sentence, my chosen channels cannot fail because I will lend them my strength as long as theirs is wanting. And it's really interesting that I've noticed that there are people that are just not wanting. And these people who are close to me, they're not wanting. So how do you help? But then they turn around and think that you're a nutter.
Well, the only thing that you do is you see them through the eyes of atonement.
Mhm.
This is, the truth of, for me anyways, and I'm not like a master at this at all. I mean, I struggle with it, and once in a while I can do it. But when we bypass all of the discord and the differences and the disappointments, and we choose to see them through an eye of compassion and an eye of knowing that everyone's doing the best they can with the resources they have available to them at the moment, then our judgment lessens and that we can see through the eyes of atonement easier. It's almost like we have to talk ourselves, well, I'll just say what it is for me. I have to talk myself through it, like, okay, what could possibly be going on with this person for them to behave like they're behaving? And what could be the possible emotional states that's driving those behaviors? And then when I start to peel it back and I start to understand, okay, that's probably going on and that's probably going on because they did X, Y, and Z, then I get to, oh, so then the ultimate emotion that's driving all this is their fear of not being loved, or fear of being separate, or fear of being abandoned, or something. And then I'll run down the process of, I get to see the struggle of that soul rather than the results of the behaviors they performed, to the illusion of what I call Gary. Like, if I look at it really, someone's perceiving me through the eyes of their belief systems. And what is that? Like, it might as well be a cardboard image on a billboard, I mean, what they're perceiving is no more me than what they're making up, and that's what they're responding to. So how can I be pissed off about a made-up thing?
Mm.
I try to like really work it through myself till I get to the place where I can just see their soul. It's a process for me. It's not something that comes automatic, that's for sure. But I'm finding that as I do that, I get more loving, softer, and way less judgmental. And it still goes back to that choosing to see through the eyes of atonement, or at least struggling to see through the eyes of atonement by trying to peel back the layers, trying to understand, and then see through the eyes of atonement. Does that make any sense?
Yeah,
Total
totally.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it
It's a
is that
process.
it is a process, and I guess the way that I work that process is I don't actually get to that point that you just explained. I'm not quite there. So then I'm thinking, well, I'm being judged by them, whoever them may be. But really, when it comes down to it, what other people think of me is none of my business. It's got nothing to do with me at all. So that's part of that process as well. So when I actually get to that particular point where I think, well, what they think is none of my business, then I start to relax a little bit more. But it's still hard to get to that and actually feel comfortable with that, because the next day you start it all over again, really.
Yeah.
I had to speak to my sister a week or so ago, and I was talking to my friend Catherine at Waddy Farm about it and dreading it, and she said, well, maybe it's not going to be the same. Set your intentions. What do you want? What do you want to feel out of it? What would you want her to feel out of it? What are you projecting to her? Make it new. Don't make it the same as it's always been. Forget about the history and come to it with new eyes, and and just unconditional love, and it worked.
Yeah.
How'd you go with it, V?
Yeah, it worked really well. Because she was asking me, or she said she needed to go to the hospital for a testing of some sort, which is an hour away from where she lives, and it's 3 hours away from where I live. And she said, I'm in a pickle. She sent me a message, I'm in a pickle. And I'm thinking, I'm dreading that she's actually wanting me to drive all the way up, or drive all the way to the hospital, wait for her, and drive it all the way back and drive home. This is what I thought. This is my projection and what she was asking for. And I kind of presented some other ideas to her, and she said, oh, it's okay, I've worked it out. I've got a lift. So all that stuff that was going through my head was a complete waste of time.
I'm not sure that it was, to be perfectly honest, because you were projecting it in a way of, you know, it's not what I want to do. I've got things that I need to be doing, and blah 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 blah, which is projected to your sister. I mean, I know your sister. And she's had to think about it. She's probably had to think about it and realize that the practicalities of that is not really fair.
Yeah.
But I also know that she can be unfair when she wants to be. So but yeah, that's great. So I think that you have actually projected it out, that it's not going to work for you, and that's projected to her.
And coming to the table with other suggestions, I think, also helps. And I left it for a little while so she could kind of think of it. And yeah, she had her own solution. I do that with clients as well. They'll send me, cover your ears, Linda. But they'll send me an email and say,
stupid questions.
Well, they're not, there's no such thing as a stupid question, but they'll ask a question, and it's like, I know that you actually have the answer, you have the documents, you have what you need. So I don't respond for a day or so. And then they'll either email me or I will call them, and they go, oh no, I sorted it out, it's all good.
Yeah. And sometimes it's just confirmation.
Yeah.
Because I've been one of those people who's been in touch with me and asked her the question. But for me, it's just confirmation of, you know, you're the professional, I'm the client. I just need to make sure, because sometimes my mind can be in this particular way of thinking. But then when I get that confirmation from you, whether it's in my line of thinking or not, it's just a confirmation.
Yes, that's usually what it is, yeah. But if you're going to go ahead and do something like buy a car, I do get onto you straight away, or else you'll buy it in the wrong name or something.
Yeah.
And there was something else that came to mind reading this as well in our conversation, is that I'm having a lot of people come to me identifying as ADHD. Well, not a lot, but maybe 3 or 4. And they don't want to do any coaching because they're worried that it will change them. It will change who they are, and they've actually said that. And that's okay, you know, they just go ahead and do what you need to do. But and you know, as conversations about with you, Gary, a lot of the time ADHD is as a result of trauma, whether it be you know, childhood trauma or generational trauma, and I've seen the slides that you have showing the brain, how the brain looks when a child's had trauma is the same way that the brain looks when it's got ADHD. So that can't be a coincidence. But anyway, these people don't want to address that. They don't think they have trauma, but they're telling me how I need to be with them for them to feel safe, for them to, you know, for them to be them, whatever. But a lot of it is just about being kind to each other, and to actually not judge people, and to not actually, to just be curious about, okay, so how did you come to that decision, or why are you doing it that way, you know, and just talking through it with them. And it's just the same. It's not like they need to identify as that to be treated in a kind way.
So true.
I love what you shared before about your sister, Veronica, because the mission is simple. You're asked to live so as to demonstrate that you're not an ego, and that I choose God's channels, not wrong, hopefully.
Yeah.
And then the holy ones share my trust, and I accept my atonement decisions, because my will is never out of accord with his. So to me, what you shared was you getting aware in your mind, so your mind could choose the atonement of the Holy of Holies in its end result. And then that gave permission for me as the listener, whether I was energetic or not, whether I was talking to you personally or not, to also have awareness.
Yeah. It comes down to choice, doesn't it? I mean, I get to choose how I show up. I don't get to choose how people respond.
Yeah.
And they may judge you, but you get to choose how you show up.
Yeah, it gives everyone permission.
Yeah.
Because the energy disperses that was hooking me into our ego construct of dysfunctional perception. And then because you decided to choose atonement in those awarenesses, you gave me an energetic permission as your friend, your sister, your person on this call to look at it at a different perception from the holiest place.
Beautiful. Thanks, Carly.
You know what I'm struck by with that paragraph is that we're now considered the chosen channel. But how do we shrink? Do we indeed shrink when we hear that? Because we think so little of ourselves. We can't possibly take on that role as being one of the chosen ones when we are. And so it's not, the problem isn't with the other. The problem is not outside ourselves. The problem is within, always. And it starts with, are you willing to think well enough of yourself where you do feel chosen, you feel in alignment? And so I know that's what I'm working on, is feeling the love of myself, for myself. And then it's so quickly I can see it in others. But until I can quickly see it in me and on me and about me and surrounding me, it's not going to be across from me. So, but this is the best.
Remember, gang, when I gave you that meditation a long time ago to go into the dictionary and pick out 3 to 5 words of God that resonate with you, and then sit daily and meditate on those 3 to 5 words of God? What you just said, Jane, is exactly, penny just kind of dropped for me, because I realized that meditation is very much about the private practice of you sitting and choosing to repeat the names of God, to become one with that source for the length of time that you're meditating and focusing on God and God alone. No other outside forces, no trying to be this way or that way with anyone. It's just you and your relationship with God. I have found it when I can meditate, and I meditate every day, but there's a difference between when I actually can meditate and when I'm just sitting there repeating words in my mouth, there's a big space between those two. But when I can much more easily see the light of God in another. So what you just said, Jane, is absolutely the truth. And I think it's extraordinarily difficult to do the acts of atonement without a meditational practice on your own individual oneness with God. I think it's near to impossible, because if you can't see it in yourself and you can't experience in yourself, how can you be that in the face of another's criticism and blame towards you? Because we're identifying so much with our separation and our identity and our egos throughout the day. And what do we spend? Like, well, for me, an hour, but sometimes people will spend 10 minutes. How does 10 minutes of oneness counter, 23 hours and 50 minutes of the idea of separation? So it really is this practice of spending more time in the awareness of our individual oneness with God, and only us individually can do that. We don't do it in a church. We don't pretend in front of people. We don't go to have communion and community, which I think is bullshit. But I mean, people get value from it, but they go there and it's not about loving God. It's about appearances, primarily, not always. But
Right.
what I know is that very quiet moment when we are being one with God, and however we do that, then we can extend it to another. But if we don't do it internally for ourselves on a daily basis, I don't see, for me anyways, it is not possible to do it with other people. It's just not possible.
But the reason why we don't quiet ourselves enough and give that sustenance to ourselves is because we don't believe. We really don't believe we're either worthy or it's for us. We should take it. It's our birthright.
I have this great comment that I always say, well, if it's not me, then who?
Exactly.
I mean,
Exactly.
if it's not each one of us individually, who are we waiting for? It's not going to show up, but you have to do it individually out of your own feelings of whatever they are, either oneness and atonement or inadequacy and shame. You still have to do it.
I get to
That
practice
little
this. I get to practice this with my horse, because she doesn't care about my ego. She doesn't care about what's happened in my day. She needs me to be present, and she needs me to connect with her in a way that is the way we need to connect with other people. There is no personality. There's no past. There's no future. It's right now. What are we doing right now?
Yeah, we will eventually come to this place in Course in Miracles about the holy instant, which we haven't gotten to. But the holy instant is that moment in time that you choose to see through the eyes of atonement. And then and only then do you begin to evolve from that choice to choose unification rather than separation. I think that's a way in action to build that association to the atonement.
I love your horse analogy, because what a great way for animals and humans, because animals don't need their ego, even though they may have an ego. They don't need it in their pure presence. And what beautiful teaching they give us.
Absolutely.
True.
I was on it's called Next Door here in America. It's community little Facebook things where people share things with their community. So here in the Villages, this person posted this video. I wish I could send it to you. I can't figure out how to send links to videos, but sent this video of animals absolutely in bliss from the love they were getting from a human. So the first was a little baby donkey running up to this little baby human and just nuzzling him and loving him and be so excited. Some guy cuddling a duck, and the duck had its eyes closed and was blissed out. Some woman going up with two female lions, and the lions, where they were on a fence, just put their paws over the fence and pulled her to them and just licked her and licked her and licked her. And there was a scene with a guy just holding his dog, and the dog was just, you could just tell the dog was feeling so much love. It was ridiculous. And then one with a woman petting the face of this bull, this steer, and just the love between them was just ecstatic. And I'm thinking just what Callie said. I wish humans could love so selflessly like that and so completely.
Mm.
Beautiful.
Why don't we?
Here you go.
Yeah, well, we have fear of one another. We have fear of judgment. We think we're our bodies and our personalities. We're afraid of judgments and condemnations, and we put up barriers and protections. But if we just chose not to see it and not care, maybe it would make a difference. So let's just love beyond it.
Be an interesting world if it had all started out with just that human, well, not even human, but just the pure love. What a different world we'd be in. We all probably would never have met because, we wouldn't need to be doing this. But it's interesting sometimes. I get caught up in thoughts like that sometimes and just think, wouldn't it be lovely if we all just were?
Well, I think the objective is to actually take those moments where we can do that and do it. And the more we do it, we build the neurological synaptic connections of habit that forms into actually neural pathways that makes that particular behavior more repeatable. The more we do it, the more dense those neural pathways become, and our thoughts follow the path of least resistance. So the more habit we build around that, the more we will think it and the more we'll enact it. But it begins with a single step of whenever we find ourselves infused in our fear and separation thoughts about others. When we turn it around, we step out of that comfort zone and we begin to start forming a new neural pathway. And I personally think that that is the only way that the world's ever going to turn around. It's not going to be collectively, because collectively people can't get there. But it can be individually, where each one of us individually turn it around in the realm of our interactions and the little tiny units of relationships we have. And when we turn it around there, then we can create something. But it won't happen collectively.
Why don't we see how we do here?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Put it to work here. What if we're so not afraid of one another right here, right now? I say yes.
Absolutely.
Well, I think that's why we have stuck together for as long as we have, because there's a certain psychological safety amongst us. And there's no judgment, and people can be and do what they need to be and do. But I think it's really, really important that we take these opportunities in relationships to create that.
And it's great to have this group so we can prove it's possible.
Yeah.
To each other. Because I know sometimes in the past I've had trouble visualizing something that I've never experienced before. So all these little steps to becoming, more awake each time with you guys is amazing.
So true.
I was talking to some friends of mine on Christmas Day, who I stayed with when I was passing through New South Wales, and he is very much projected into looking into the future, you know, so that he can try and plan for whatever is happening. And we were having a conversation about it. I don't even know how it got onto that. Kelly said something, Hamish agreed with her, which was a nice change. And she said, like, they're both there together, and it wasn't a nasty conversation. It certainly wasn't putting him down at all. It was just being honest and truthful. And she said, he just needs to stop living in the future. And he said, yes, I do need to stop doing that. And I said, have you ever thought about just living in the present, Hamish? And he goes, oh, not really, but I can give it a go. I said, well, that's great. And then I quickly changed the conversation because it just became, yeah, I don't know. I started feeling uncomfortable with the conversation because I know them and I know that they're not really into that. Well, I know that Hamish isn't. Kelly and I can have a conversation about that. And I've seen Hamish when he gets annoyed with the conversation. So I wanted to change the subject pretty quickly. But I'll call them again in the next few days and just see how his practice of living in the present is going. But the mere fact that he was open to it, I thought, wow, that's actually really cool. That's very cool. And of course, they both take medication for depression and all sorts of different. So they actually said that they were, what was their words? Suitably dosed up to get through Christmas and New Year. So maybe after New Year I'll speak to them and just see how they're going with not taking their medication. But yeah, it's very interesting. It's interesting because again, it's that whole judging thing, I guess, is that I didn't expect to have that conversation with Hamish in earshot, but he was very open to that. So it'll be interesting to see whether he does start to practice living in the present.
And the way you presented that to him, Linda, as well, is just what if. And it wasn't a complicated thing to do that didn't involve any religion or any sign up for this or that. It was just what if you could be present. Yeah. And how simple does that sound? It's not simple, but
it's not a simple practice. It takes practice, of course. But yeah, it is.
Seed there.
Yeah, it's very interesting. But I kind of, it must have been a good thing because they've invited me for Christmas next year and have told me that my bedroom, Linda's bedroom, will be available. They only have one bedroom at their, but they're putting another one in. So, but yeah, it's just interesting. Just felt I needed to do that.
So I guess I have a question. I guess I know the answer, at least for me. Do we?
Oh, Jane, you're muted. You're muted.
In order to go down this road of being a chosen one, it sounds like it requires us to have strength and to not need to be accepted by others. There are two things that help me tremendously in my life that I practice often. I'm not great at it, but I'd say I'm good. I'm a C student. And one is that I look for the Jesus in other people. I look for the good, always. Like, I almost get excited when I see, like, all of you. When I see anyone, it's like, oh, show me your brilliance. Yes, I can't wait. You know, it's like I'm like a child at Christmas, you know? And then secondly, what helps me with people who, we would term as hard-headed, ignorant, any lousy adjective we could throw at them is I try to see them as a 5-year-old. And when I can see them as a 5-year-old, I can have great empathy for them because it reduces, you can see the pain, you can see the heartache, and you can see where the behavior's coming from. And that little 5-year-old that's so terrified, scared, and so alone, the empathy just comes right out of me. But I have to, those are like my 2 setups in my life. They're like my go-tos. And when I implement them, it's like, oh, geez, that feels better. Now, maybe it is all about making ourselves feel more comfortable with being uncomfortable. Because we're always going to, be in so-called uncomfortable experiences. But anyways, that was just an FYI for my 2 go-tos. And they're my knee-jerk reactions in life. And it's taken me years to set it up as such. So.
Those are useful. Definitely useful.
Yeah.
Should we get another paragraph in? Only done one. It was a good one, though.
It was. So that's great conversation. Who wants to read number 7?
I will.
Good on you.
I will go with you to the Holy One, and through my perception he can bridge the little gap. Your gratitude to your brother is the only gift I want. I will bring it to God for you, knowing that to know your brother is to know God. If you are grateful to your brother, you are grateful to God for what he created. Through your gratitude, you come to know your brother, and one moment of real recognition makes everyone your brother, because each of them is of your Father. Love does not conquer all things, but it does set all things right. Because you are the kingdom of God, I can lead you back to your own creations. You do not recognize them now, but what has been disassociated is still there. Dissociated? Dissociated.
Could we read the next paragraph? Because I think the next paragraph ties directly into the one you just read.
Oh. Who wants to do that?
I vote for you, V.
Okay. As you come closer to a brother, you approach me, and as you withdraw from him, I become distant to you. Salvation is a collaborative venture. It cannot be undertaken successfully by those who disengage themselves from the sonship, because they are disengaging themselves from me. God will come to you only as you will give him to your brothers. Learn first of them, and you will be ready to hear God. That is because the function of love is one.
Does that clear up number 7 for anybody a little better? It does for me. Does it for anybody else?
I love that salvation is a collaborative venture.
I kind of feel this is pretty much what we were talking about how to recognize the God in others. And until that's probably actually the way that we can be more connected to God is to see God in those around us. There you go.
Yeah, and I think we've had that conversation before, quite a while ago, but I just, as soon as you said that, it just made me think of a conversation that we've had to do with that.
The course repeats itself over and over and over again. It repeats it in different ways. It's really it's saying something so simplistic, but it says it in convoluted ways to unravel the different egos and the different mental constructs that so many of us have. So we'll run across this concept again, no doubt.
Mm.
It's very powerful, though. Does anyone have anything else they want to say about these two paragraphs? Any elaboration? Do you want to go on, V, to number 9?
Sure. It's a timely message, actually, because I've been thinking, oh, I haven't been doing my gratitude practice for a while. Oh, a new section, creation and communication. It is clear that while the content of any particular ego illusion does not matter, its correction is more helpful in a specific context. Ego illusions are quite specific, although the mind is naturally abstract. Part of the mind becomes concrete, however, when it splits. The concrete part believes in the ego because the ego depends on the concrete. The ego is the part of the mind that believes your existence is defined by separation.
So the whole concrete part, that would include like your God, the word's gone right out of my head. That you need to be, oh my God. I'll think about it. Just leave that. I need more coffee.
Linda, it's just called being over the age of 50.
And almost
That's
at the
all
age of
it is.
60. Yeah. Patterns, like it's your patterns. This is the way how you do everything every morning when you wake up, or this is the way that you do things when you.
Yeah, the things you don't question, they're just the things you do.
The things that you do.
Go, why are you doing it that way?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like rote.
Yes. Unconscious patterns
Mm-hmm.
that become so ingrained that you don't think about them anymore. Like driving.
Breathing. But they're not really the ego, though, are they?
No.
They may be the things that are set in concrete. Or am I being too liberal about this?
Those are the conditioned responses to what we've made up about the world. It's what I spoke about earlier. It's a neurological patterning through habit that actually creates the concrete, to where we just start, just doing what we've always habitually done, thinking the way we've always habitually thought. But there's one last line. The ego is the part of the mind that believes your existence is defined by separation. And I can attest to that one. I guess maybe everybody else can as well. But when you actually have the capacity or the experience of leaving your body, but you choose to stay in it because you're too scared. You don't really want to wake up. You want to stay here in the body where it's safe and familiar. And I think that happens for all of us when we get ready to do a big change. Oftentimes we want things to stay the same because it's familiar. And the ego is definitely familiar. Each one of us believes that we are this sort of skin bag with this personality and our collective history and our parents and our dogs and our things. We really do believe that's who we are. Oh, okay. Apologize. I really do think that's who I am. And at the same time, I know it's absolutely not true.
And lucky you're not alone, Karen.
I know I'm not alone.
So it's a protective mechanism for the ego.
Absolutely, because we think we're separate.
Yeah. And so concrete is much safer to sit in because you don't move than the unknown of the Holy of Holies guiding you.
Yep. I mean, the thing that will always come up into my mind is, oh, what if it's not true? You know, and I leave what I do believe is true, and I go to some place where, what if it's not true? And that becomes a place of concern. Anyone else have that one?
Mm.
Or am I the only one?
No, not the only one.
You're not alone.
Mhm.
Yeah. Hmm.
And I think I get what you're saying a little bit with or I'm probably, this is from my own perspective, but to not be separated can be quite scary as well, because I'm thinking about growing up when I thought love was all about obligation. Family was, it was an obligation to do things for the family and be with the family and blah blah blah. And I never felt like they were not my family, but I was obligated to be there for them. And it only kind of changed with the last few years with my mum, where I could see past that and actually just love her, even though there was so much to do for her. It was done with love rather than obligation. And I think as well with self-love, or when you're getting loved by someone else, it's sort of like, oh, hold on, this is too big. I can't deal with it. I'll go back to my ego. How can I sabotage this so I don't have to deal with it? It's too big.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what we're saying is that we have to work on our belief system.
Yeah, definitely.
I'd just like to share this one little tiny thing, because I've been doing this kind of work since I was 17. And you know what? Progress is super slow.
Mm.
And the thought that I had one day was like, anything that's ever happened to me of a spiritual nature was gifted. It was given like by grace. It wasn't something I earned. Did I put out the effort to change? Yes. Was I successful, in my opinion, of creating massive change for myself in just tiny little snail pace? And then I thought, you know, whatever kind of experiences that have been given me that are extraordinary was given to me by grace. So one of the things that, and I know I've shared this before, but one of the things I always pray for is, you know, give me the grace, or grant me the grace to be able to live this path and become one with you. Just grant me that grace, because I can't get to you, but you can grant me that grace and bring me. So if I figure if I ask for that daily, I will build that neural pathway of being open to receiving just grace. Because I really do think it's by the grace of God we wake up. I think it's a gift. I don't think it's earned, but I do think it helps to put out the effort to live out in the atonement and to see the world perceptually the way we're being taught to see the world. But even that, I feel, even my desire to do that, I think is grace. In other words, I don't think anything comes from my will. I think it all comes from grace, to tell you the truth. I think we're being pulled towards that power and that source. I don't think we're earning it.
Because that's all there is.
I think there is. I think that's absolutely the truth. I think that this entire creation, when we turn our face towards God and we go, I want you and you alone, that's when I believe the grace is given to us.
Through the surrender.
Through the surrender.
Yeah, through the desired want
Mm.
from the heart, not Yeah, I love what you're saying because it's the atonement is the opened book, open channel to receive God's grace in its
Well, I
full
think it's our tiny little thing that we can do in the holy instant to say,
Yes.
I'm choosing to identify with God rather than my separation. And in that tiny little instant, when we can do that, I think, what's the word? We prepare ourselves for that grace.
Yeah, we receive it, don't we? Because we then become an open channel to what is unknown of what receiving will be. We might decide it's going to be a new car, but when we open to the grace of that, it could be totally different to the new car.
Well, I personally think it just has to do with receiving love.
Receive.
And when we're able to just choose to see the atonement in our brothers and sisters rather than our separation and our fear, we become closer to what I consider God to be. And then I think we have a greater sense of the ability to receive that grace. Now, I could be wrong, but it may be doing rosaries in a Catholic church for all I know, but something tells me that's not it either. Well, it's almost time.
Yeah.
Is it?
Hey, we've reached
It is?
14%. According to Kindle, we've reached 14%. We've been on 13% for I think most of the year, maybe.
Well,
Like
what a
I
great
said,
way to start the year then.
what I said,
Yes.
at a snail's pace.
Yes.
Well, I've got mine. So I'm
Go.
going to read this. As you come closer to your brother, you come closer to God.
Mm. Beautiful.
Mine's I am worthy to be a chosen channel.
Mm. I was blind, but now I see.
Nice.
Linda?
Love does not conquer all things, but it does set all things right.
Callie?
Mm.
Mine is receiving God's grace in full volition.
Mm.
And Carly?
Well, since you guys all said my ones, I'll read this little thing I've got. It says, reflect on your present blessings, of which everyone has many.
That's lovely.
Beautiful.
Well, gang, you have an incredible evening. I'm going to go out and look at Christmas lights and come back and work for a couple hours, but I got to get out of this chair. So
Yeah.
we will talk to you guys next Tuesday.
In the new
Okay.
year.
Yeah,
In the
see you
new
next
year.
year.
24.
Yes, I know. It should be a very interesting year that's going to require all of us to see the atonement of God in every single person, especially Republicans.
Let's do it.
Thank you.
We'll have to do it. Okay, gang, take care.
Bye.
Bye,
Thank you.
everybody.
Bye.
Happy New Year.